Hello and welcome back. This is part 21 of how to make a HexTile board game in Unreal Engine. In the last video, we worked on making the player card. So it's just kind of in the top right. This is a bad example because both players randomly got the name Alex, but it will display the player's name, their color, and then what we have built out right now is how many sacred sites they have, right? Every player by default has 0 of 3, and that is the mission objective, right? If you hold 2 of these 3 sacred sites at any point in the game, you win. So the player card is the foundation of getting this set up and working. And then what we want to work on in this video is when we actually move on to a sacred site, how does everybody in the game know that Alex or Jim has one of those 3 sacred sites? And so what we really need to think about is, what do we want our source of truth to be for this? And I think the best place is our game mode. So how do we get this information to the game mode? And so we got to go back to some of our first videos of how we set this up. And what we made is, I think this is under blueprints, no, assets. Yeah, under assets. So we have this BP tile grid manager and then BP HexTile. The grid manager loads our settings, right? How big is the map? How many tiles? And then actually creates the tiles. And then the BP HexTile is each individual tile. So we come into our grid manager, right in our event graph. When we begin, we are getting our maps, size, all that, and then spawning in the hex tiles, right? And then when this is done, we come to this function set tiles, and then here's when we actually apply the settings from our data table loaded from our CSV onto each of the tiles. And this is the most important part for what we're trying to do in this video, this tile type, which I think is, where did we keep that? Yeah, it's this enumeration, right? And in here, right, a tile could be of type site, right? We also have mine, farm, keep. I think these are important things too, so we're going to start building out some logic for this. We don't necessarily care about grass, forest, desert, mountain, random, invalid, etc. But these ones we do care about. And so I think the best way to do this is, right, we're looping all of our tiles effectively. It's row names, but each row is a tile, and we're setting this. At the end of this loop, I think is where I want to start running the logic. So I'm going to add a new function. I'm going to call this function, I don't know, set, update. Actually, yeah, let's do set initial key tiles, we'll call it. And come back to our set tiles, and we'll drag this function out. And this is going to run off the complete. So what we're going to do is, after we load all of the initial settings into each of the individual tiles, we're then going to check, well, which of these tiles we really care about. And in our set tiles actors, actually no, in our event graph, as we spawn the tiles, we're adding them to this array hex tile actor. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull off this hex tile actor. Make sure you're not doing the static, right? Just the actor. We'll do for each loop. And get tile type, I think it's called. Yep. And what we're going to have here is we're going to do a switch. And plug this in. Okay. So what's important here is if it's a keep, if it's a site, if it's a mine, if it's a farm, right? Our key tiles. We want to add those into an array into our game mode. So our game mode knows which of these tiles are the tiles we care about. And from there, then we can check, well, who's the owner of that tile? And that's going to be how we determine, okay, this player owns this tile. Do they own 2 sacred sites? If so, then they win the game. And I think we want our game mode to be the source of truth for that. So what I'm going to do, I think I want to do this via function. So add keep or add tile keep. Another one, add tile. Actually, before we make this one, I'm going to delete it. Let's come into this add tile keep inside an input. And this will be of type BP HexTile. An object reference. This will just be tile to add, we'll call it. Compile and save that. And then we can control D this to just duplicate it. Add tile site. Control D. Add tile mine. Control D. Add tile farm. Okay. Now we're going to need some variables. And we should look at kind of decluttering some of this a little bit. So let's add some categories quick. Just keep this a little bit cleaner. So we'll just call this category like general. So we'll put our player controller list into there, our spawn points, number of players in the game, current players, and then we'll call this one maybe combat or battles, maybe might be more accurate. And then we'll put all this data under battles. This is just to keep this a little bit cleaner. We have a lot of stuff that goes under battles. Attacking tile, defending tile. Okay. This was something, whatever. Okay, so now let's make a new variable. And we're going to call this tiles keep. And this will be a BP hex tile type, object reference, and make this an array. Compile, save. Then we can duplicate this to tiles sites. And I'm actually going to make this keeps. Duplicate this to mines. Duplicate this to farms. Okay. Now let's come into our add tile keep. What we'll do is we'll drag this, get it, add unique. Good. Add tile site, grab our sites, add unique. Come into our mines, get, add unique, pass this through, and farms, add tile farm, get, add unique, boom, boom. Okay. And now when we come back to our grid manager, actually, we got to do one thing first. In our event graph, before we do any of this, I'm going to drag all of this over. We're going to do a get game mode, cast to GN turn-based, and promote this to a variable, GN turn-based ref, and plug that through. Good. Okay. And then we come into the set initial key tiles. Now with this reference, I'll do add tile keep. And add tile site. Add tile mine. Put this down here, and then add tile farm. and plug these up to the corresponding enums. Okay. Now what we want to pass through is this array element. And this looks super ugly, but what do you do? Then connect this to all of them. Okay, and then what I just want to do in this add tile keep, just make sure this is working. Come off this, let's do a print string, and print this through. So we should see 3 come through here. Good, right? 3. 75, 71, and 67. Right, 67, tile 71, tile 75. Good. So now the game mode knows, right, where are these important tiles? Now let's go into our player controller, PC turn-based. Okay, I added this function in earlier. I'll walk through this. So create a new function and just do is tile sacred site. I call it that. Come into this function, add an input. That should be of type BP HexTile. Let's call it tile 2. And drag off of this and grab your tile type, right? Get tile type. And then type in equal and do this enum, equal enum. And off of this, right? So you should have something like this, probably says invalid. Click on it and grab your site. So then what we want to do is then do a branch, right? Hold down B, left click, and then true. So, and then where you'll plug this in, come to your event graph, and under your movement, when we move to a tile server, I added it right here, right after the move units to tile, right here, before we do this branch. So slide this stuff over, drop this function right in here, and then connect your tile 2 to the tile 2. So what this is going to do is anytime, right, whether through an attack or not through an attack, anytime we move to a tile, we want to check, is that tile a sacred site? And if true, then we want to do some logic. And what I want this logic to be is once we move to this tile, right, move units to the tile here, which this will set the owning player index on that tile, or in BP text HexTile. I want the game mode to then know that a player now owns this tile, and then check if they have 2. So we're going to need to make a function in our game mode. So let's go back to our game mode, add a function, and call this function check sacred site owners. And all I really want to do here for now is we're going to grab our tile sacred site and let's do a for each loop. Now for this, let's see, I think it's player index. Yeah, get owning player index. I'm just going to print string this. I just want to make sure this is running through correctly. And back in our player controller, yeah, come back in our player controller, is tile sacred site. If this is true, I'm going to grab our reference to our game mode turn-based. What do we call this? Check sacred site owners. Check sacred site owners and pass this true through. Okay, so let's test this. Start first with the server. So the server is going to come over here. $990, right? Hopefully you saw that. I'll show you again here on the client side. Ooh, something got really jacked up here. Oh, what the heck is going on? This literally wasn't a problem before. Let me debug this quick. Okay, okay, I know what the problem is. So I told you guys to add this in here, which is great. The problem is this blueprint exists on both the server and the client, which is fine. Um, but when it's running on the client side, this cast fails, right? Because the game mode only exists on the server, not the client side, and so then it's failing, and it's not running this delete components, which is the static. So we actually got to rearrange this. So I'm just going to drag all this down, plug this back in. I'm going to slide this over, and I'm going to bring this switch over. I'm going to plug this in here. Then compile, save. All right, so the server is going to be setting this. And let's actually come into this, and let's just make this replicated. I don't think we would really need to, but I don't think it's bad to either. Now let's check this again. There, much better. Okay, so let's bring our client over. And watch in the top left, we should see a 991 now. 919, perfect. So the game mode now knows that this player owns one of these. If we move this guy over, we should now see 911, 119. So now, in this case, the player has two. So that's the kind of, we got to think through now, how do we want the game mode to identify that logic? So that's what I got to think through here quick. So I want the game mode to be the source of truth for this because I think it's the cleanest. But I think what might be best is if we actually hold some of this information in the player controller, but it always derives from the game mode. So what I'm going to do, we're going to make a new variable in our player controller, owned sacred sites. And let's make this of type BP HexTile. This is going to be an array. So object type array. And I'm going to make this replicated as well. So what I want to do back in our game mode turn base, actually first I'm going to do back to our player controller turn based. Let's find some space. I'm going to put some comments around this stuff. So this is all this is updating player cards from the last video. We're going to make a custom event. Add custom event. Call this clear owned sites. So first be run on server, and it will be reliable. And all this is going to do is it's going to get our own sacred sites and just clear it. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll make another custom event, add owned sites. This will be of BP HexTile site to add. We'll get this, and similarly to in our game mode, we'll do an add unique. Connect these. And I'm going to add one more event in here too that we're eventually going to need, right? If you have a sacred site and you lose it, you need a remove. Well, actually, let me think about this. You might not actually need to do this. I think the way the logic is going to work is anytime a sacred site gets captured by a player, all player controllers are just going to clear, right, what they think they own, and the game mode is going to tell them what they own. So that way, if player 1 attacks player 2 and player 1 wins a sacred site, right, and say the battle's on a sacred site, that tile will change hands, right? Its player index will switch from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, whatever the outcome is. And that will clear everybody's owned re-add them, and then we're going to do a check to see if they own two. So this makes sense, I think, and this should cover all of our purposes. So I had a comment on this, clear and add sacred sites. And this add needs to be run on the server and made reliable. Okay. So let's come back into our game mode. So anytime we do a check sacred site owners, the first thing we want to do is let's get our PC list and clear, not clear, clear owned sites. Oh yeah, we have to do a for each loop. Let's grab this connected is going to plug into here, so we can do that now. Check this down. Maybe clear owned sites. Okay. So anytime we run this function, we're going to tell all the player controllers, hey, you don't own any sacred sites anymore, at least temporarily. And now me, the game mode, I'm going to tell you what you own, right? The game mode is the server, right? This should be our source of truth. And so then what we can do, grab our player list, get it, and then get a copy. So the way an array works, right, is it's a list. And so all of our player controllers are here as a list, right? 0 and 1 would be the indexes for player 1 and player 2, right? 0 being player 1, 1 being player 2, right? So on and so forth. That will match our owning player index. So what we'll do is we'll get the owning player index of the player controller. This is going to return some errors that I got to think through if it's going to cause an issue. And actually what we'll do instead is, let's just do a check. Is this less than 9, right? 9 is always our default for nobody owns it. So I only want to run this if it is not 9, right? We could do not equal to 9, but this works too. And if that's true, then we will get the player controller that corresponds with the owning player index of the tile. And from this player controller, we will run this add owned site. Add owned sites. And to make this more accurate, this should actually be add owned site, right? It's just going to be one site at a time. So if true, site to add would be this. So hopefully this makes sense, and I think it will when we break down the logic into a more practical visualization. Okay, so then when this happens, add new site. I'm just going to do a print string. We'll pass through the name. Make this display a little bit longer. Okay. Okay, so let's check this first, the server. So you see nothing print string yet, and when we come in, we claim this, right? We see this print string, right, which means the player controller now knows that it owns it. Let's just check it on the client quick. Comes all the way over, boom. And it print string twice now because, right, we have two owned sites, so this is happening twice. And now we want to get this into our widgets, specifically our player cards, and update these sacred sites so that it's showing through here and then onto the HUD. Okay, so I think, so we can use the length of the array, the owned sacred sites array, to get the total number we own. And then pass that through. So I think the best way to do it is actually embed that in our current logic here. So this is in the player controller of this update player card server. So off of this array element, we can get our owned sacred sites. Come off this and grab length. And what I want to do is let's add that. Well, we want to add that here. Okay, I'm going to change things up even a little bit more because this is a better way to do this. We're going to make a structure, and the structure is going to contain all this information, and we'll make this a little bit cleaner, and we'll use it for some of our more long-term stuff. So come to your blueprints, right-click, go blueprint, structure. We're just going to call this player info. Actually, at the front, I'll put S for structure, S player info. And so what we want in here is a lot of these variables you already have. Player name, player index, right? So number one, player name, our first variable. And this is a text. Second will be player index. This will be an integer. And next will be owned sites. And this will also be an integer. Okay. So what we want to do with this is we're going to add this as a variable. Let's just do player. Let's call it exactly as S player info. And it will be of type S player info. And not an array, singular. Compile, save. So what you can see in here, right, is here's these variables. So structures are really, really good for a lot of different things, like just housing a bunch of different variables, piece of information in one place, and then you can just pass structures across events and then break them out for the info you need, which just consolidates a lot of this stuff. So I want this structure to be the thing that's passing through. So I'm going to rewrite a little bit of this logic, which is going to break some stuff, but then we'll fix it. So delete everything on this, and we're just going to have an input that is S player info. We'll just call this player info. And into our add player card, let me get rid of these variables, add a new one. S player info. I know we're redoing some of the work we did in the past video, but we'll be happy with this. All right, so then what you can do with this structure is you can come off it, you can do break. And now we can pass these variables through. Boom, boom. And let's come back into our player controller and connect these two. So then instead of passing this and this, grab our S player info and pass this through. Okay, so just by doing all that, all of our, just check quick, but our names should still be populating. And they are not because we haven't updated the structure. So let's go in our player controller. And okay, in this get random player name, when we set this player name, we'll get this and set member. What is it? Set, isn't it set members? Oh, yeah, okay. And then check this little default category. This. And then what we'll do is we can just connect all these. And just grab this player name, drop this here. And where are we setting our player index? Is this off of spawn or is it somewhere in here? Yeah, okay. So then we have this event, set player index. Grab this, set member, I know this feels like duplication, and it is a little bit. And really what we might do is actually remove these variables to not exist independently and just derive everything from the member. But I'm just going to do this for now, and we'll come back and clean that later. Okay, so these are being set both on the server. And so now when we come in here, right, we can see this pulling through, right? We got Jim and Bob, and our colors are correct. So both of those are passing through. So coming back to here, maybe every time we update this player card, let's grab this S player, set members, and check on our owned sites. Oh, and one thing with this S player, make sure you replicate this. This is important. So this should be a replicated variable. Connect this, and then we can plug this into here. And pass this through instead. Boom. Okay. And then what we might need to change, let's see, add player card. So then when this player card is created, I think what we should change in here, number of sacred sites. Okay, so then let's just run this event. So back in our HUD, drag this over a little bit. Right after this team color, let's do the, what was it called, our player card? Update number of sacred sites. Update number of sacred sites. Connect this, and then connect this. I'm just going to hard code this as 3. And from our owned, we can now grab this from our structure. So the reason I'm doing this, right, is because eventually maybe we want to add in the number of keeps the player has, the number of farms, the number of mines, right? And then we just add all of that into the structure and then just bolt it on to this logic. And that'll make this a lot simpler. So the last thing we need to do in our game mode, when we check the sacred sites, when this is all done, we want to then do the update player card, which was this function. So off of this complete, we'll update our player cards. So this adds it, and then come into here, and we do the logic. Okay, so this should work. But it busted something. Someone debug this. Okay, this was a bad way to do this, so I just gotta reset here. Still want to keep the update player cards. What we want to get is get our S player info and just pass that through. We're not going to. I was setting this piece wrong, right? The length of the sacred sites. So I'm just going to clear these out and drop these down here. What was happening was I was setting it, but we're setting it for all of them, and it was duplicating. So just clear that out, right? Your update player card should just be passing this S player info into the add player card client. We need to set, though, in our S player info, not set, the variable, get it, and then set a member. We need an event that sets this. Get this, get this length. Okay, so we need to get our own sacred sites, get the length of it, and then set the number of sites we have on the server for each individual player controller. So let's do this. I'm making a new custom event, and we're just going to call this set number sites, and have this run on the server and be reliable. And all this is simply going to do is just going to get the number of sacred sites that we own and set that number in the player info so that we can grab it here and pass it through. So to do that, we need to add this logic into our game mode. So let's go back into our game mode and check sacred sites. So before we update the player cards, we need to get our player controllers, clear all the sites, drag this down. We're gonna have to do this one more time. So do a for each loop for our player controllers. And what's this event called? Set number sites. Set number sites. Okay. And then we can update our player card. Okay, this should all work now. So let's check. Okay, I think both players just happen to be named Bob. Yep, okay, got Bob Marcus, Bob Marcus. So now what should happen is when we move this guy, boom, okay. Bob's got 1 of 3, and let's see if that's coming onto the client. It is. And so now let's see if, let's split screen this. So let's see if the client captures the site. Okay, Bob's goes over there. So if now Marcus moves to capture this other site, boom, 1 of 3, 1 of 3. Okay, so that is working as intended. This is being set, and I think the one more thing I want to add on here is we want to do a check of, is this greater than? So let's come off this, do greater than. Is this greater than 1? If it's greater than 1, that means it's 2 or 3. And in both of those cases, it would equal a win, right? It should never, ever get to 3, but just in case something weird happens. So if this is true, let's just do a print string. Say you have 1. And I'm just going to have this print string 10 seconds and make it different colors. Nice and obvious. Okay, let's just test this logic. Okay, so Jim is player blue. There's got 1. Boom, you have 1. Boom. So I think that's where we're going to cut it for this video. Obviously, we'll replace this with more of a widget and a game over kind of thing. But this gets all this logic to work, and then it's working its way through various widgets we have so that every player knows exactly where every other player is at. And that should be good. I think in the next video, we'll work on maybe the game over widget. Just have that show up if you capture 2 sites. And then we're going to build out similar logic for the mines and the keeps. Right? Those will be a little bit different because you obviously start with some of those, but I think we can apply the same logic on getting the owner player index and then populating that through. So yeah, we'll do that. And then after that, I think we'll get more into the economy side of things. So spending gold at the keep to buy new units. And then we'll get more into the round mechanics. And that will really complete the kind of bulk of this. And then we'll get into more main menu stuff, multiplayer, setting up lobbies, all that fun stuff, which would be pretty complex and kind of a beast. But that's all right. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Join the Discord. I can provide better troubleshooting there. Yeah, thanks for watching.